Roster cuts have begun for the Panthers ahead of Tuesday's 53-man roster cut deadline. Who's out the door and who could be back on the practice squad later this week? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council. Because next Wednesday, it's back, the weekly Wednesday mailbag. I'll be answering all your mailbag questions every single Wednesday throughout the entirety of the regular season and quite possibly the playoffs this year on Locked On Panthers. What you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council, or just simply hit me up over on Blue Sky, also at Julian Council, to get your questions in every single week for the weekly Wednesday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. The Carolina Panthers and the rest of the NFL, all 32 teams, have begun their roster cuts. The Panthers parting ways with 18 players on Monday afternoon. We'll talk about those guys who are out the door and if any of them could be back this year on the practice squad or quite possibly the active roster. Also, I have a couple of questions heading into Tuesday, as at 4 p.m. they got to be down from 90 to 53 men. A few more questions remaining for me heading into cut down day. And looking back at the preseason, did we learn anything at all about this team heading into the year, or are there still plenty of questions that need to be answered and will be answered once we get down to Jacksonville in about 13, 12 days time here in Carolina? I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but let's go ahead and focus in on the 18 players who are no longer with the Carolina Panthers as of this moment. Of course, there's potentially an opportunity for several of them to be back on the practice squad later this week, as again, the Panthers go from 90 to 53 men by 4 p.m. on Tuesday. They cut 18 today, and they got to have 19 more. Trying to do the math, 19 more guys who have to be cut by Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. So taking a look at the guys who are no longer here in Carolina. The quarterbacks, Jack Plummer, he is no longer here. Bryce Perkins has been waived as well. Running backs, Imani Bailey and Karon Lynch-Adams. Wide receivers, Colby Hudson, Jacoby George, TJ Luther, tight end, Dominic Daphne, offensive lineman, Stephen Lasoya, and Luke Kandra, outside linebacker, J.J. Weaver, linebacker, Jacoby Windman, cornerbacks, to Travis Broughton, Mello Dotson, and Trey Swilling. And then safeties, Jack Henderson and Isaac Gifford. Those 17 players have all been waived, which means they're now subject to waivers, and they can either be claimed or they will then be available and able to sign wherever they so choose. The one player who was released, meaning he can sign wherever he wants right now, was kicker Matthew Wright, which means, ding, 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 Ryan Fitzgerald is Carolina Panthers starting kicker as of this moment. I say as of this moment because it's still possible that they look elsewhere in trying to address that position. They have seen Matthew Wright and they have seen Ryan Fitzgerald dating all the way back to the spring. So they got plenty of looks at them. I found it to be very curious on Thursday evening, and maybe it was much ado about nothing, that Dave Canales had seen enough and was just ready to go home, eat some pasta, kick up his feet, and enjoy the rest of the evening there on Thursday. That he didn't really want to watch anymore. But I'm just thinking, if you're in a kicker competition and you have a kicker who has not been able to really attempt any kicks throughout the preseason because the offense did nothing for you during that point in time to evaluate the kickers in game, why not give him that opportunity, even if it means playing 36 whole more seconds of a week 3 preseason game? Like, and I get it. I wouldn't really want to be out there any longer. If I was Dave Canales and I had sat down all the starters and it was just one last opportunity to evaluate a bunch of guys who are probably not going to be on the roster anyways, whether it's the active roster or the practice squad or anything like that, I get it, but it was weird. And when we asked him about it, he's just like, yeah, we're done. So kind of made me feel that Ryan Fitzgerald was going to be the guy. And I felt for a while that it was going to be Fitzgerald. He has a big leg. He's younger, going to be cheaper than Matthew Wright. Sucks for Matthew, a guy who's been a journeyman throughout the league to get an opportunity here and did not win the job. Now, it's not to say that Ryan's officially won the job, because there's a guy like Ben Sauls, who we saw kicking for the Steelers on Thursday, a perfect 4 for 4. This was reported by Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network today on Monday, that the Steelers, who are currently shopping him, if they cannot trade him, he will be waived, which then means that teams can place in waiver claims. And I'm guessing the Panthers would likely be one of those teams, because while Ryan Fitzgerald was really good, Sauls was better last year at Pitt. So we'll see how that plays out. For now, congratulations to Ryan Fitzgerald. I think the Panthers have a young kicker that they potentially could lean on for years to come. But we have to wait and see who else is available, because he has not kicked in the NFL just yet. Neither has Sauls. But this is not a competition necessarily that is over as far as who is going to be set in stone as starting kicker this year. But right now it's Ryan Fitzgerald. And I think I'd be comfortable with him the rest of the way if that's what they decide to do. But we'll find out how that plays out. Cornerback was the other one where there's any sort of storyline, as Jack Plummer, who was here as third quarterback last year, primarily on the practice squad. I think it was the final 2 or 3 weeks where he was inactivated to the roster for the last couple of weeks to be given that, I suppose, reward for what he had done throughout camp and throughout the season, helping assist his team. He had to be even the backup to Bryce Young when Andy Dalton had that car accident back when he went to Denver, I believe, in week 7 or 8 of last season. So, yeah, not really surprising that he's been waived. I think there's a possibility that they decide to sign him back to the practice squad. There's also other guys out there who could make some sense, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on, but we'll see where this goes. I have felt from the very beginning, going back to last year, that Jack Plummer is not an NFL quarterback. And aside from, I guess, what he did against the Bills 2s and 3s, have not seen a lot of positive moments from Jack Plummer in the preseason, which, yeah, it's just the preseason, but still there is some merit to it. And yeah, I didn't see a lot from him. Bryce Perkins, from the way that Dave Canales talked about him last week on Thursday, doesn't sound like he's somebody who's coming back. And if Jack Plummer's not coming back, well, as hell, I'll say this actually. If Bryce Perkins is not coming back, then why is Jack Plummer coming back? That's the way I look at it. Running backs, no surprise there with Bailey and Lynch Adams. Wide receivers. Remember on Thursday, I was sitting there in the press box and I started asking people around me, it's like, have you seen Jimmy Horn go in at all? And no one had seen him. But we had seen Colby Hudson, we had seen Jacoby George, and we had seen TJ Luther all go in before Jimmy Horn. I asked Dave Canales after why we didn't see Jimmy Horn. He said it was an opportunity to give other guys a chance to get a good look with, I'm assuming, the number 2 offense, and with Jack Plummer as their quarterback instead of Bryce Perkins, who had been there for 3 days and didn't know the offense. So what were you really going to glean from what they were able to do in the second half? So made sense, especially now that they're not here. So they want to give them another opportunity, get to evaluate them. And I assume they already know what they have in Jimmy Horn Jr., who right now remains on the roster. And we'll find out by 4 p.m. on Tuesday if he indeed will be a part of the initial 53-man roster in Carolina. But I did not think he was in danger of losing his job with Colby Hudson, Jacoby George, and TJ Luther as competition. I would think that George is probably a guy to bring back to the practice squad. And maybe some of the other ones, Hudson, Luther, we'll see how that plays out. Dominic Daphne, the tight end, think he's going to be a practice squad guy as well. Was on the practice squad a little bit late last season. Got to run with the first team a couple of times with Tommy Trimble ailing from that back surgery he had this offseason throughout training camp. So I think Dom Daphne has a chance to be back here. The offensive lineman, don't really see it. Jacoby Windman, I did have him making the 53 initially. I had talked to somebody and they were telling me Bam Martin Scott, the rookie from South Carolina, the undrafted free agent, was somebody to look out for. And I ignored that and went with Windman. Maybe Bam Martin-Scott makes it. Maybe he doesn't. I just went with Windman, thought, okay, that could make sense. We'll see if they end up keeping 6 and if at linebacker, that is inside linebacker to be in particular, and if Bam Martin-Scott makes it. So something to look out for on Tuesday. The corners, no surprise there of any of them. Then at safety, also no surprise that those guys have been waived. So we'll see if any of them get signed back to the practice squad. I think a couple of them would make some sense. The others, quite possibly on another practice squad in the NFL, or as I mentioned throughout the previews during the summer, UFL bound. So those are the 18 players that have been waived and released by the Panthers on Monday afternoon. 19 more to go. We'll find out by 4 p.m. on Tuesday who the final 19 are and who the 53 men who have initially made the roster in Carolina are heading into 2025. But I still have some questions heading into cut down day. 3 of them to be exact. I'll tell you what those are in just a moment here on Locked On Panthers. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches for just 24 hours. FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race. If you're not worried about Matthew Stafford, his back, whatever's going on in LA, go ahead. Put on the MVP odds for him. How about creating your champion in August? If you believe that it's going to be Carolina, go ahead and do it. Or possibly parlay your division winner dark horse, which I think that could be the Carolina Panthers. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Carolina Panthers have parted ways with 18 players. 19 more will be let go by 4 p.m. on Tuesday as Panthers go from 90 to 53 men ahead of the 2025 NFL season. And there still are 3 questions I have as we head into cut down day as it pertains to, of course, the Carolina Panthers. Number 1, who will be QB3 this year? Bryce Perkins doesn't sound like he's going to be back on the practice squad. And as I said earlier, if he's not going to be back, why would Jack Plummer be back other than to continue the development or whatever it is that they say they're doing with Jack Plummer as a third quarterback in Carolina? Like, I think there's some value, I suppose, to having a young guy in the system last year, building on that again throughout this upcoming season. But what more needs to be seen? I don't know. So we'll see about that. But there is one guy in particular who I think could make some sense for Carolina because of his ties to this current staff and, well, to the area. John Wolford, former Wake Forest Demon Deacon. You know who else who's also a former Wake Forest Demon Deacon, played offense there, was a wide receiver? Brad Idzik, the OC here in Carolina. So the Jags, they just released John Wolford, and here's also another reason why you want to bring in John Wolford, who the Panthers play week 1, Jacksonville. So you can bring him in, know what the Jags are doing offensively with Liam Cohen now being the head coach, and it's not going to be all that dissimilar from what you saw last year in Tampa, of course, but still maybe some new wrinkles there. Wolford can come in, and he can give you all that information, and then you can move on. But actually, I think you want to keep him because he has experience in this league. He has been with the Rams and with the Bucs. Who was he there in Tampa with? Dave Canales and Brad Idzik. So that would make a lot of sense to bring him over for, the espionage part of it heading into week 1, the fact that he already knows the scheme and he's played in the league before. Like, he's been asked to go out there and to play games, like important games. Like, I think when Jared Goff was hurt, didn't he come in and play in the playoffs for the Rams, or at least a game where they needed it? So I'm cool bringing John Wolford back to the Carolinas. I think he is from Jacksonville. I want to say he went to the bowl school down there. So for him to be back home and to not keep the job. Mac Jones also, I believe, went to the same school as him. And then I want to say Riley Skinner, the former Wake Forest quarterback as well. I'm going to have to go ahead and just, let me do that live and make sure I'm not lying to what school he went to. Yeah, he went to the bowl school. So yeah, I was right. I was right about that. And Riley, no, what was it? Riley Skinner. Did I say Riley Leonard? Riley Skinner, who was the Wake Forest grade. He also went to the bowl school. So yeah, that's some private school in Jacksonville. Apparently produces D1 quarterbacks all the time. But back to the conversation that we're actually having. John Wolford would make some sense. Would make a lot of sense. Like, I would rather Wolford be here than Jack Plummer. Like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day as far as like how I'm impacted by this. But for Carolina's sake, if anything happens to Andy, who's had a couple of injury things happen to him the last 2 preseasons, then had the car accident, which, freak accident kind of thing, it would be nice to have at least a third guy. And if you're ever going to add a roster spot for a quarterback 3, then it would be someone who's actually played, and you wouldn't really be that upset actually had to play at the end of the day. And John Wolford would be that guy, not Jack Plummer. So that's one question I had. Number 2, another question I have is, will Adam Thielen be traded before we get to 4 p.m. on Tuesday? Because I'm sitting here, and like yesterday on Sunday, I was sitting here waiting for a while before I decided to put out my initial 53-man predictions, because I was just waiting to see if Thielen was going to be traded or not. As Minnesota, if you listen to the show, you already knew this before Adam Schefter put it out there. They're very interested in adding a veteran, and in particular, they're interested in a homecoming with Adam Thielen, who played for a long time there in Minnesota, went to Mankato, still has a house up there. Would be a pretty easy transition, and it would sort of be like a rental number 2 for the first month of the season before they got Jordan Addison back. And we'll see how that would play out for Adam if he wants to do that. And with Carolina, so much depth there at wide receiver, so much young talent, could make a lot of sense. Just go ahead and move on from him and be like Green Bay a couple of years ago, where they had a bunch of first and second year guys who ended up being the top receivers, along with a third year quarterback, first time starter in Jordan Love. Now Carolina has Bryce Young, who started for 2 years now. So he's entering into his 3rd year as a starter, but still there's some parallels between Green Bay and Carolina, and potentially getting younger when it comes to the offensive skill positions and their quarterback. So Adam could be the guy that would be the odd man out there if they want to trade him away, which again, I would prefer to just wait until closer to the deadline to do it. But right now, I do see the benefit of just ripping the Band-Aid off. Let's see what the young guys can do. Now, Bill Barnwell of ESPN.com laid out a trade proposal on Monday, saying that Carolina would get a 2026 6th-round pick and then a 2027 7th-round pick. Not the best compensation, but again, older player last year, and he's got a $6.25 million base salary, which Barnwell believes potentially could be a problem. This is how he would solve that solution for Carolina and for Minnesota, saying the Panthers would eat $1.5 million of Thielen's contract, getting 2 of the 3 picks the Vikings just got from the Jets in the Harrison Phillips trade. Thielen would take a $1 million pay cut in return for having the remaining $3.8 million guaranteed. The Vikings cleared out almost exactly that much when they made the Phillips trade, allowing them to absorb what's left of Thielen's contract as part of the deal. So that's just what he says could potentially make sense for both sides. I would, if I'm Carolina, love to get a 5th, 4th. I mean, 4th, it's never really realistic, is it? But 6th-rounder, 7th-rounder, that's basically what you got when they trade away out Robbie Anderson, who they were going to cut anyways. And that's what you're getting for Adam Thielen, who can still play. Robbie Anderson couldn't play, and wherever he's at now Robbie chosen Robbie, I don't know what the hell he's calling himself at this point in time. That's fine. If that's what they want to do. If they want to open up space and if they can get Minnesota to pay the majority of that base salary, would love more, especially for somebody who can actually play. And it's the Vikings who are desperate, not Carolina. So the Panthers don't have to take that deal. Third thing I'm wanting to know is, will they make room for additions to the secondary? As in, will they just decide to go pretty thin at corner and at safety? Like at safety, it's pretty simple. It's going to be Trevon Merrick. It's going to be Nick Scott. It's going to also be Lathan Ransom, and it's going to be Damani Richardson. That's only 4. You would like to add one more, I would think, back there. And then at corner, it's JC, it's Mike Jack, it's Shaw Smith-Wade, and it's Corey Thornton. And behind Corey Thornton, the rest of the corners really didn't show out well during training camp, and in particular the preseason, that being Shamar Bartholomew, who gave up a touchdown in every single preseason game. Caleb Evans didn't really do a ton, and those are 2 guys that were being given the opportunity. And now we're at the point where it feels like they need to add another one. So do they just go light, just keep 4 guys in preparation of signing a veteran or adding someone via the waiver wire? That's just a thought I have as far as going into it. I have them keeping Shamar, even though I just don't think he's going to be around that much longer anyways. Could certainly be wrong about that, but based off of what I've seen, some heard as well, we'll see how that all plays out. Looking back at the preseason, did you learn anything? Because I'm not so sure I did at all. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've been putting together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew, no problem. Join a public league, the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Did you learn anything at all about the Carolina Panthers during the preseason? I'm trying to think back to those 3 games and really those 4 series that we saw from the starters and try to, Did you learn anything at all about the Panthers during the preseason? I'm trying to think back to those 3 games. Well, I guess 2 games. Well, 4 series that we saw from the Panthers starters and try to glean anything at all from what came out of those performances. Going back against Cleveland, well, the offense went 3 and out. Then they came back. And Xavier Legette got in a fight, gave a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. Wild stuff. Jalen Coker came in, and then we saw Bama Bryce, vintage Bryce from last season in the second half. Nice little scramble drill. Throw it there to the back of the end zone, found Jalen Coker, and everyone went home happy on that Friday evening that they saw the Panthers offense, first team offense, score a touchdown. Panthers defense got a 3 and out. Then they gave up a couple plays there and were able to get off the field as Shedeur Sanders just kind of ran 30 yards backwards and just didn't throw the ball away, or at least give somebody an opportunity there on that 4th down. So positive to take away from both of those is that you saw a touchdown. They gave up nothing to a 5th-round quarterback and a bunch of backups. Week 2 in Houston, maybe not as good of feeling just based off of the defense. As soon as Derek Brown came out, couldn't stop the run, gave up a touchdown. You look at the offense, only ran 6 plays, and it was they really ran 7, but didn't count because there's a penalty and on an interception. I'm not sure right now whether Bryce Young meant to throw that ball or not, knowing that there's a flag against the Texans. We'll never know. But yeah, didn't feel great about that when leaving. But again, it's just like, okay, it's just a preseason. Dave Canales said he felt really good about what they did on that Thursday against Houston during joint practice, and they had to earn the opportunity, which just felt really weird. A lot of people wanted to see these guys play in the preseason this year. You got that. So congratulations, and I think it was the right decision. They played 4 times as much as they did last year, and they really were focused on Bryce Young, and the offense played 4 times as many drives as they did last year. 1 drive against the Bills, 2s, 4 drives this year. 2 of them, really 3 of the 4, left you really wanting, while the 4th one, great, but again, against the Browns 2s. I think there's a lot of positives to take away from the joint practice that they had against Cleveland. Same thing, apparently, with the one in Houston. But as far as how to really feel about this team, hard to say anything coming out of the preseason other than like the depth is a concern, because you don't lose 3 preseason games in a manner that they lost them if the depth on your roster behind, of course, your starting 22 is as poor as it appears to be here right now in Carolina. I don't see it at corner outside of Corey Thornton, and even him, he's a young guy, undrafted free agent. I suppose there must be a reason. Now, J.C. Horn was talking to us, and he was saying, I don't really know how this guy didn't get drafted. And it's not like J.C. is out there grinding the tape and figuring out who should be drafted at corner. I don't think he cares. But, yeah, it is interesting. Like, that's how that played out when starting day 1 of training camp, he was out there with the ones, filling in when J.C. went out. And then when Mike Jackson was out, he was in there as well. So you like that, but you don't love what you have behind. Safety, it's a lot of inexperience. Even Demani Richardson playing last year, still some inexperience there. Linebacker, if something happens to Kristen Roseboom or Trevin Wallace, hard to feel great about that. Like, I think all of that played out during the preseason, just that the depth, there's still a lot of questions. Offensively, you felt like you couldn't really get to see a lot of it because Andy Dalton got injured in that second preseason game, then didn't play last Thursday. So you didn't really get to see what you had and the rest of the wide receiver group, and you didn't get to see an offense that I think would have actually been operational with that offensive line that they had, especially the one on Thursday, had they had Andy Dalton out there, but you didn't. So any real questions that you have remaining about who this team is won't be answered until week 1. And what Dave Canales actually said back in the spring was they're not going to know who they are until 4 to 6 weeks into the season. And trust me, when we get to week 4, we get to week 6, and I'm sitting in that press conference, I will ask Dave Canales, who is this team? Who are the 2025 Carolina Panthers? Looking back at the preseason, pretty hard for me to sit here and say that we know definitively or even a little bit who this team is and what they're going to be. Some certain spots that I can feel pretty good about, some other spots that got some questions about, kind of hunches I had about this team just on paper, but like with our own eyes, evaluating it, can't really say. We'll find out come week 1 down in Jacksonville when they face off against the Jags. And then the next couple of weeks after that, as we get a real understanding of who these Carolina Panthers are heading into 2025. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe and follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because again, next Wednesday, it's back, the weekly Wednesday mailbag all throughout the regular season and maybe playoffs. I'll be answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions here on the show. At me, DM me, get those questions into me right now. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, and I will be back with y'all on Tuesday reacting to the 53 men who have initially made the roster here in Carolina. All that coming up on Tuesday on Locked On Panthers.